the innovations and technologies that are the need of the hour and how those are rolling out on ground from their perspective. But today is even more exciting as we actually have the disruptors here who are changing how things happen, all the way from, buying cattle to eating this in a, cup, and we'll find out more whether we will still eat dairy or we will not have dairy, and how all of these guys are disrupting it. So without much further ado, I'm going to hand over to Pramod. Pramod is the COO of Creamline Dairy at Godrej Agrovet, and we are super delighted to have him run this again. As I told Pramod, it was one of the most exciting sessions I sat through. So Pramod, no pressure, but looking forward to an even more exciting session this time. So over to you.
Thanks, Ritu. I'm pretty sure it's going to be exciting looking at the panelists that we have today. Welcome everyone to the second part, and I think this will be because of all the startup excitement. I think 60 minutes can be a little short. Just before we start, dairy is also, if you look at it from the agri value chain perspective, it's also one of the better organized ones, thanks to the vision and bold execution of Dr. Verghese Kurien. He gave us a system that works well in an Indian context. And hence, that also puts a greater challenge for the potential disruptors. Right? You got to disrupt something which is working fairly well. I would say fairly well because there are again many opportunities. On the other hand, dairy offers a large scale and an immense potential to intervene and disrupt and create value. Now, without much ado, we have a great panel across the value chain. Starting with Dr. Praveen Kini from Tropical Animal Genetics, again, from where it all begins. We have Kirti Jangra, who's the co-founder and CEO of Animal, an exciting platform, which we'll know more about in some time. We have Jofi from Prometheon Power Systems. They're into procurement, and that's an essential part of, that's where the cold chain basically starts. Then we have Ranjit Mukundan, who is the co-founder of Stellabs. Now, we are, as a Creamline, we are a customer of Stellabs, and I think they are doing some great work in terms of providing their farm-level technology, and I think they've spread even wider than that. And to close, then we have Siddharth Menon, who's the CMO of Browns Food International. You might know better as Epigamia, as all of consumers. I'm a big fan of that. And I think that's a very critical part of the story because a lot of innovation, value addition, and also income to the farmers increases when the end consumers are paying premium for good quality products. And finally, we have N.V. Ramana, the money man. He's the advisor to the Samanati Financials, Intermediary Services, an exciting startup which is making a lot of news. Very difficult to open an Economic Times without Samanati not winning a prize somewhere. So glad to have you here, sir. And welcome all the audience members who've registered and who are participating. This is also streamed live on YouTube. You can also catch up later in case if you're not able to view it live. Yeah. So so let me start, and let me start with you, Dr. Kini, at Tropical Animal Genetics. Briefly, can you introduce what you do for the benefit of everyone here, and tell us what Tropical Animal Genetics is all about?
Thank you, Pramod. So Tropical Animal Genetics, as in short we call it TAG, we focus on making better cows. So we focus on making better cows, and let me come back to you exactly how we make better cows. So either through better genetics, where you use the classical breeding technology and get better genetics, but the genetics needs to be delivered, needs to have a context on what the farmer wants, what kind of a farmer are we doing. Are we giving it for a high input farmer, like somebody sitting in Punjab who's able to afford giving feed and nutrients to that animal, which is producing about 60 liters of milk per day? Or is it genetics for a low marginal income farmer who has a capability to give feed only for a person who can give only about 5 to 10 liters per day animal? So this is the context we are doing. And within these two types of animals, is what we bring in the genetics in, and how we deliver the genetics in, and the whole ecosystem which goes forward to make those genetics happen is what we do. And we use various technologies to bring that genetics into the play. So how do we start the first concept? So let's take the traditional methodology of bringing genetics is the semen technology. The disadvantage with the semen technology is you're only giving 50% of the genetics. You cannot assure what kind of animal you're going to get. That assurance of animal is not possible with an AI system. While with an embryo technology, we can give a 100% guarantee what kind of animal it is, provided the farmer is able to give the right kind of inputs. So that is what we are trying to do is we are trying to progress shifting the entire milk ecosystem from an AI-based system to an embryo-based system. Because once we do an embryo-based system, then it is with absolute confidence that the farmer will know that if I give X amount of food or X amount of nutrients, I will get Y amount of milk. So this is what has happened, for example, in an poultry industry. Venki, when it gives its chicken, it stands by the chicken. And it says, if the chicken bird doesn't give you this many eggs, paisa wapas. So we are exactly saying that. We are saying, tag animals, paisa wapas. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't perform, provided you give XYZ eggs. So this is the broad context of what we do. Then, of course, we do a lot of subsystems which we develop. We have a whole 100% subsidiary of ours, which is completely into bioengineering for this particular area. So we have developed, the India's only company which separates out male and female sperms. There's only one single monopolist in the United States, and we are the other one. And we are bringing, and we have worked out with the government of India and NVDP, and we are supplying about nearly 1,000 to 1,200 crore contract with the government of India to supply this particular technology, sorting technology. We have then, let me stop you there. So this is basically what we do.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. That's a very bold vision, money back guarantee in the livestock, in the agri sector. I hope that plays out very well in the Indian context because that's very much needed. From there, I just want to move to Kirti, an exciting platform, right? An Amazon for cows, right? I mean, sorry for putting it so mildly, but let us hear from you in terms of what Animal does and how that benefits the farmers in general. Kirti,
your voice is muted.
Sorry, my apologies. Thank you, Pramod. Thank you for also inviting me, and thank you for giving Animal the opportunity. So I'm Kirti. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Animal. Basically, the idea for Animal originated very organically. We wanted to build something for the next 500 million users, and we realized that the next 500 million users are probably our parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts. My uncles, aunts, grandparents, everybody's in the dairy farming space. I'm from Haryana. So dairy farming holds a lot of importance in the next 500 million users of internet's lives. So essentially, it's an important part. And like you said, the supply side is still sorted, but the input side, the farmer side is still an inefficient process when it comes to dairy farming. So that's the moment when the team decided that we want to build something for the 500 million users within the dairy farming space, something helping the farmers, the household dairy farmers, before the milk actually goes out for sale. So our vision essentially is that we create a meaningful impact in the lives of a dairy farmer. Right now, how we are doing that is we are a peer-to-peer cattle trading platform. Essentially, we connect buyers and sellers at a hyper-local level. So if you are a seller, you don't have a visibility that who is looking for a cattle just exactly like you want to sell. And similarly for a buyer, either you go to a Pashu Mela or you pay high amount of fee to a broker to get the kind of cattle that you want to buy. So we are removing these intermediaries. We are making this process efficient. Whereas a seller, I can just go to Animal's platform, list what kind of cattle I am selling, list all the parameters from the nasal to Byath to lactation to how much milk it is giving right now. Every essential information, post your photos, and we'll show it to all the buyers that are around. Right now, we operate in about 3 states, Rajasthan, Haryana, and UP. Last month, about 1 lakh cattle were registered on Animal for sale. And we were able to fulfill the sales for about 45,000 out of them. So essentially 45,000 of that 1 lakh that got registered on Animal were sold by sellers to buyers that they met on Animal. So apart from the numbers, an interesting part is that when we started, people in my village laughed कि बताओ कभी गाय भैंस भी online बिक सकती है. And now the time is this, that even people from my own village buy and sell on Animal. And the user sentiment now has become that obviously गाय भैंस भी बिकती हैं online. So that has been the journey. It's been about 1.5 years. That's the overview of Animal.
Very exciting, Kitty, and probably post the call we'll also connect. We could probably do some business together. Yeah, from there, would like to bring in Ranjit. Stellabs is an old hand in the dairy space. And one would ideally say it would need not much of introduction, but still, Ranjit, go ahead and then introduce Stellabs, please.
Yeah, thanks, Pramod, and thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, ThinkAg team, for having me here. So what we essentially do is digitize the dairy supply chain. We touch both the pre-harvest and the post-harvest. We start at the farm. As all of you know, it's all a very smallholder farmer kind of a space. These are very small farms. We put our combination of hardware, sensors, sensor controllers, IoT routers at the farm, at the collection center, at the chilling center, at the plant. And the idea is to collect data using a combination of these hardware and software, and then use this data to help solve for productivity, quality, and traceability. Right, and we work in an ecosystem-led manner. So a good number of folks here on the panel, we work in some way or the other. For example, on the cold chain infrastructure side, we work very closely with Promethean, but we add the monitoring and the digitization layer on top of that, and that gets integrated with the rest of the supply chain. We work with Samannati to see if a lot of what we do in this hardware component here, how do you not use just your own balance sheet to digitize? How do you use third-party balance sheets like Samannati, who have a very good agri presence, so that we go beyond ourselves to roll out our hardware? Creamline is one of our esteemed customers, and how do you use leverage customers and forward-looking customers? And Creamline and Godrej is indirectly one of our investors as well through the Godrej Agrovet Group and Omnivore. And of course, I remember talking to Kirti when she came on board. I think Omnivore is a common investor, so we were seeing how to sort of leverage, but it's just that we just need to accord the right bandwidth. So the whole idea is, can we take an ecosystem-led approach to digitize this massive industry, right? And help the ecosystem to participate very effectively. It could be the banks who might want to lend to these smallholder farmers. It could be insurance companies. It could be other platform providers. It could be commerce providers. Can we integrate them onto our pre and post harvest digital platform, and then help ensure that using data and the ecosystem, at the end of the day, solve for productivity, quality, and traceability. That's in essence what we do, Pramod.
Yeah, thanks, Ranjit. From there, Jofi, if I can come to you, right? So you are in that space where the milk is ready and you're procuring. Now, this is a very again a well-organized model. Either it's dominated by the old milk traders or the new cooperative-led, chilling center-led kind of an established. So where do you see your role, and how do you plan to disrupt that?
So first of all, thanks, Pramod, and thanks to ThinkAg, for bringing me into this discussion. I'm also happy to see that there are at least four people on this panel with whom we have some kind of working relationship. Ranjit, we also supply reefers to Epigamia. Siddharth may not know, but through Brings, and obviously you, Pramod, and hopefully we'll have some relationship with Samannati very soon. So said, we are an end-to-end cold chain company, and what we do is essentially try to maintain the integrity of the cold chain from the farm to the consumer through a host of products, starting from bulk coolers, milk can chillers, cold rooms, reefers, and even the cold rooms for the end delivery. And our mission is to eliminate food loss through innovative cold chain solutions. When we started working around 7 years back, what we realized that a big constraint to implementation of cold chain infrastructure at the villages was the unreliability of grid power. And bringing the cold chain infrastructure as close to the farmer is absolutely essential if you want to impact quality. So that's when we developed our patented thermal storage system. It's basically it's a thermal battery which stores energy whenever the grid power is available, and then this energy can be released to chill the produce, as and when required. So you actually are liberated from the lack of availability of electricity when you require, and you eliminate diesel generators. So which makes our solutions even more carbon friendly. The chilling costs are lower, etc. But when we dug a bit deeper, it's not just enough to provide a solution in the form of bulk milk cooler. We found that there are several constraints to take cold chain to the back end. Obviously, capex is a big constraint. There is a constraint around operations. It is difficult to collect milk from thousands of villages and chill it and get it to the plants, etc. And we also saw that there was a lot of questions on visibility, like is the milk being chilled properly? Is it being maintained hygienically? So we said let's develop products and business models to address each of these challenges. And the starting point was we first moved on to a lease business model. A few years back, we have started with quite a few customers wherein we said we take the responsibility for the equipment, for the maintenance and everything. And then the dairy can just focus on the, the farmer, the collection, etc. And we ensure that the equipment runs properly. We also started innovating around the technology to lower the scale of the equipment. It's always, what happens is when you scale down chilling equipment, the unit cost goes up on a per liter basis. So what we have been trying to do using our technology is to lower the scale so that we are able to make, right now we have a can chiller which can chill 160 liters of milk a day in the milk can itself. And at the same time, ensure that the capex per liter doesn't go up. And we have also been integrating IoT with all our solutions so that there is a fair amount of visibility for all our customers. So that's where we went to the next stage. And then one of the things we're piloting right now is just going a little bit further and saying, okay, we are doing this, we are providing the lease. Can we also get into the value chain and chill milk and give it to customers? That's more a part of a pilot we are trying. We see a lot of potential in it. And if you see, at the end of the day, the question is there space for multiple entrants there? And there is because it's a large country. Less than 25% of the milk is organized. There is a huge amount of opportunity to get in more of unorganized farmers into the organized milk chain, and that is where we believe that a lot of the new players can play a very big role.
Thanks, Jofi, and thanks for taking us through that journey. Now, if I can come to Siddharth, all of this comes together if you're able to provide one differentiated product to the consumers, and Epigamia seems to have taken a lead in that, especially in the dairy side. Tell us about Epigamia and your story.
Hi, thank you so much, everyone. So we are a 5-year-old brand and a startup. We started 5 years back. We launched Greek yogurt, which is nothing but your curd or yogurt, which is strained to give you extra protein. And we added some fruits to it to make it super tasty. That's how we started 5 years back. We got some amazing response from consumers, some early adopters. And what we realized is that, people who did not have yogurt in the consumption basket after tasting yogurt, us and a bunch of other products, were suddenly adopting yogurt in their lifestyle. And it became a sort of habit product. And for the last 5 years, we've been building the base of consumers. We're a brand that truly believes in pushing boundaries to contemporize your traditional products. How do we do it? We bring in exciting flavors. We bring in new consumption occasions. For us, Greek yogurt was just that. I mean, your curd was the katori to the thali. And with Greek yogurt, we made it an independent snacking event. So that's how we've sort of started off, and over a period of time, pushing boundaries. We launched smoothies, which is our tribute to lassi, and now we're pushing boundaries with with ghee, where we're bringing ghee into a category like spreads and trying to make it healthier and tastier for you. So that's really about the brand. Are we a dairy company? No. We truly believe that we're in the business of branded fresh FMCG. One of the things that we realized when we speak to consumers is that everyone has a different connotation of health. Some people want protein, some people want intermittent fasting, some people want to just work out a lot more. But if there's one thing in India that nobody debates on, is the fact that they want their food fresh. We have been spoilt by a home cooked meal. And now when we are moving into new consumption occasions and consumption beyond home, we are demanding freshness in food. And I think we are convinced that that's really the future. And dairy, of course, is as fresh as you get. And that's how we sort of started trying to build a set of products and a brand that sort of drives that. Over the last 5 years, we've been knocking doors, trying to build a brand, focus on the product, working with people like Jofi to build a cold chain that can actually manage not necessarily the shelf life of 1 to 4 days, but 17 to 18 days. It's going to lie in the store, right? So everything from having the right trucks to educating retailers not to switch off their fridges, which is something that they're habituated to doing. That's how we've been building the entire front end, just the brand and that infrastructure. And now I think we're in a stage where we're saying, okay, fine, if that's the front end, we've got a business model that we can scale up there. Now let's look at the back end and see how we can contemporize the value chain, right? Is there something that we can do? And that's conversation that we are starting. So I'm super excited to be part of this panel and get some ideas and thoughts and connections.
Right, great. I think there's a common theme emerging where you started one place and then suddenly you realize that you have to either collaborate or get into the other part of the value chain to ensure quality. I think that's good. And thank you for emphasizing that the fresh is the future. I think that'll give a lot of ideas to people watching. Now, to round up all of this, let me bring in Samanathi. Ravana, you've been doing a lot of great work, and dairy can benefit a lot from getting the right kind of funding at different parts of the value chain, starting from the farmer to the consumer. So please take us through the Samanathi's journey and specifically your experience on the dairy side of things.
Okay, my journey started also from dairy, 1974, when I joined Karnal, NDRA. From there, it has been 46 years. I've been seeing the industry moving into different levels. And I've really seen the way how it transformed from a government-run dairies to privatized, then technology coming in. And I'm really seeing that this is a very, very exciting period for the dairy sector as such, because I think in another 4 years, I'll be completing 50 years in dairy. I've been observing them while I've been moved from dairy to tobacco to agri business to finance finally. That's how I started with Samunati. I think Samunati's story also started with dairy. The first 25 crores of disbursement started with dairy. And the model they follow is B2B2C. So they don't do direct retailing, but they work with the people who aggregate the produce. And the approach, first level at a high level, is the value chain approach. Today, Samunati works around more than 60 value chains, both in agri and allied sector. And the principle we use called AMLA, which is aggregation, market linkages, and advisory services. And the best part of Samunati, how they started their journey, is while they started with dairying, they started with people who were collecting milk for the main dairies. We said, I think in the previous discussions it came, you can't ignore the intermediaries. So we need to work with them and make sure that they get the finance to either finance the animal or finance their whole value chain from collection onwards. So that's where it started. But I think the way we realized that there are many more sectors we can work on. So it moved on to other sectors. But if you look at the journey of Samunati within the dairy, the way they worked is we don't have any product. That's a very broad statement to make for a finance company, but that's true. We sit with any of the people within the value chains, whether it can be a core player or a player who is supporting the sector, or even who are in the ecosystem. Ultimate aim is that while providing this money, you have to make the value chains work at a very high efficient levels. So that's where once the value gets added, we have a share to take from the higher value addition where we make it work at a very, very high efficiency level. So that's why you see, when you see every player we see here, they have something to do with Samannati, and we sit with them, work with them, and sometimes we may not even give finance for 6 months. We are talking to them on what do they want actually. Do you want a market, or you want an ecosystem? You want a platform to sell your product? Then figure out, and if the constraint, which is the main constraint, is the working capital, that's where we step in, and most of our loans are solving that small bit of financing, which bottlenecks, which actually make the system work in a slower level. For example, the farmers in dairy, when we started with in Puriyambakam, Sarva Seva Dairy, we started, they said they wanted working capital to give it to the Taj because they pay you after 35 days. That's where we started, 1 crore. Next, immediately they said, can you give us some money to buy a truck? And we gave that. Then they said, now all my farmers want to set up a feed mill. Can you help us? So then the dairy said, we need to get the quality control. So we gave the money to set up the whole quality control equipment, especially for testing equipment at a collection center level. So that started. So I'm saying, when you start working with the value chain, 2 things we realize. One is, you work with the more number of players in the value chain, your risk comes down. So this is what it was missing in the whole value chain financing. So that is something we really look at it. We are not looking at the market linkages or advisory services as a service to them. We are actually looking at it as to mitigate our risk so that you make more cash than your ability to return to us is higher. That's how we started. This is the way. I think today we are dispersed in the last 4.5 years, I think 6,000 crores. And then companies worth about net worth is about 500 crores. This all happened because working with the...
What is that?
Hello? So this is the story of Samannati, because it's, I think we believe the partnerships we work with, that's where we make that the whole ecosystem in a much higher equilibrium. That's where the whole financing comes as a way, but it will be more efficient. If the partners are efficient or the borrowers are more efficient, then our ability to collect the money is high. So that is the reason I'm saying our even delinquencies, we don't lose money. Even in the agri sector, everybody raised their eyebrows when Anil said we are getting into agriculture. I think there's a loss making, but we need to figure out how to work with the players. I think that's the first cut. Let's stop here.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for that. Now, if I can, thank you for those round of introductions. And now I have some questions, about the sector. Probably we can take, 1 or 2 such rounds and then throw it open to the audience. I've already seen some 2, 3 very good questions come from that. Dr. Kinney, if I could come back to you, right? Why is it taking so much? This is like, a long story. Whenever we look at dairy, the yield gap has been there for a long, long time. On an average, the average hasn't really moved up as fast as you would like it to move. What do you think is the challenge in bridging the yield gap?
So the real challenge is the success of the first milk revolution. The genesis of this problem actually started when Kurian, it was actually did a very good job, and because he was so good, but the genetics actually has really started working backwards. So when you did the first revolution, he got the exotic animal from the United States or UK or wherever, and this was called Bos Taurus. And then you combined it with an Indian breed, which is either, at that time, there were a lot of Indian breeds were available. And then we bred them together, you got F1, the first filial generation, as you are aware of it. And that generation gives you the best quality of milk. So you have the best qualities of Bos Taurus coming in, so high production yield, and the best qualities of Bos Indicus coming in, which means high amount of resistance to heat and disease. So this is perfect. So when Kurian brought his semen in from United States, that's maybe in 1970 and 80, we did a great job. But then onwards, we continue to bring semen from exotic animals, and it started the hybrid vigor started to drop. So F2, F3, and today it is all gone all over the place. So the animals do not survive. They do not have enough genetics. If you bring in the good animals, people are not able to give a right kind of animals. So the genetics has stalled at where it is. So we have to develop a different approach in managing this whole genetic game. Either we start improving our Indian breed so that it can survive in this, like how Brazil has done, or we continue to give F1s time on time. So these are the two options which are available to us, because typically to improve the genetics, it takes anywhere between 7 to 10 years to just get 5%, 10% increase. And most of the Western markets have taken 30, 40 years to achieve where we are. So it will take a long, significant amount of time. The only way to do is leapfrog this whole technology and only give F1s to all our farmers. So that's the long answer to your short question.
Right. So if I can just follow up on that, right? So because especially you mentioned on the Indian breeds, then how can we, get our best of the breeds, our Indian breeds, and improve their yield? What is the way there?
So first question asked is, why do you want to have Indian breeds? I'll put the question back to you. Why do you want? Is that because we have some kind of a sentimental reason that we want to have Indian breeds, or is it because we want our farmers to make money, make it more profitable? So these are the two questions we have to ask ourselves. So are we doing conservation? So a lot of the government system looks at some rare breeds and they want to bring it up. That's conservation. That's nothing to do with production. So if you want to have a productivity, then you need to have the best of the Indian breeds and the best of the exotic breeds, and that's what we call as a F1. Then the end farmer can make money out of it.
Great. So thanks for putting it so succinctly there. So from there, right, Kirti, if I could, bring you in there, right? So now, of course, one way is to improve this thing. The other is in terms of if there are pockets where good breed of animals are there, then how can you, get it to the other pockets? How can the farmer pay the right price for the right breed so that at least he or she is going to make good return on the investment, right? So on your platform kind of tries to bridge that gap. On your platform, one concern is that how do you ensure the quality? Now, today, if I register, I have a buffalo to sell or such and such a breed, such and such a genetics, how do you ensure the credibility so that the person who's buying on the other side is assured of trading on your platform?
So the two main reasons why any marketplace is needed is transparency and trust. And that's what we also plan to solve for. So for a buyer, we provide increased liquidity. So you have more options to choose for. If you're looking for a certain kind of animal, then that's the first level of increasing transparency, being able to provide them more options in their budget. It also adds more convenience to the process where I don't have to just go to, where I don't have to rely on a broker, pay him 2,000-3,000 rupees, where the broker also changes the price to earn more commission. I don't also have to rely on Pashu Mela. For a seller, we provide two main things: more number of buyers. So essentially it's a matching problem. So if you're able to match the right people, they are both happy with the deal. So we provide more number of buyers. And another important thing for them is added predictability. For example, if I wait for 15 days, the amount of money that I'm going to spend on the cattle is going to be, let's say, X. So instead, for me, I would want to sell it at a lower cost than try to, save that X amount of money. Hence, that's that X that we sort of eliminate out of the equation. For a seller, if you want to sell now, and most of the times the seller wants to sell either Pashu zyada ho gaye hain, or the Pashu is needing healthcare, has just delivered, or it's an urgent need of cash. So we help you get the right price for your cattle. So for this process, we have started ensuring that the sellers are genuine, that the information posted about the cattle is genuine, that the right information gets floated on the platform. We also plan to build identifiers that can help us in tagging and sorting based on genetic lineage. So these are baby steps. It will take a bit of time. So first we have solved for the convenience, for the liquidity, for the matching part of it. And now slowly we are building to solve for information asymmetry and quality as well. So all of them eventually lead to two things, which is transparency and trust.
Right. So you already transacted about 45,000 animals on your platform. So I'm guessing most of them are fairly happy with those transactions. What has been your understanding from those?
So of course, we have a very high user rating. So we like to believe that most of the users are happy. And in fact, we get a lot of messages that prove that users are happy. But of course, there is always a 10% of the segment where they feel that the buyer has cheated them, etc. That happens. And we continuously are focused to build qualities that these numbers get reduced more and more.
Got it. Now, one of the key requirement of finance is when you're buying a cattle, right? So I think that's the biggest expenditure. Of course, the farmer also borrows at different points in time for different personal needs. But one critical requirement of finance is when you purchase cattle. Now, do you see an opportunity in collaborating with, I wouldn't want to use this fintech, but generally any financial partner, because I think there you're basically trying to solve for both the finance as well as the product.
Sure. Of course, if Animal becomes the number one trading platform, the trading platform of choice for the farmers that we wish that it becomes, there definitely lies a big opportunity where you get aggregated users who all want to buy. So of course, or you also have sellers who have high cattle feed or other demands that require money. So definitely there's insurance as well as financing opportunity that lie in this space. We have in fact been approached by a couple of insurance and finance companies. However, for us, an important part is that we are in the trading equation. So what we wish to do is solve the trading end to end. Our objective is to create a seamless, really efficient way for buyers and sellers to trade. As we do that, when finance becomes an integral problem for it to solve, we will think about collaborating in that.
Thanks, Jose, and thanks for emphasizing your sharp focus on solving the trading problem first. Yeah. So Rajat, now, okay, genetics will take some time. You have to deal with the cattle that you have. How can Stellabs ensure you get the best out of what you have?
Yeah. So while genetics and things like that are an important step in that direction. Currently, as you know, our productivity levels are so low. The good news is it can't get any worse, right? You're starting at a really basic 1,200 liters on an average, on an annualized basis, considering the wet and the dry average, right? So the only way up is up north, right? And even simple things like if you actually give animals drinking water 24/7, the productivity can go up by 10 to 15%, right? So a lot of times it is not a case where you have hit the genetic threshold. It's more like you need to have the basic management practices in place, right? Folks, if you don't have enough mineral mixtures and enough supplements given to the animals will not even come to peak estrus, right? So there's no point in trying to inseminate it if it's not peak estrus itself is missing in the animal. So the focus is to see if we can do some basic 101 steps first, get them up to the next level, right? And while doing that, collect enough data so that the rest of the ecosystem can also participate. So you asked about finance. So one of the things that we do is, given where they are, can we enable nutrition financing for these farmers? So we do tie up with nutrition folks. We would also approach GAVL, but we're working with a bunch of European nutrition providers more in the supplement space to see if can these smallholder farmer get from a sort of a prescriptive model of buying supplements to a more proactive nutrition model, right? So that simple things like estrus becomes a non-issue. Can we use the milk collection centers as a point where it can become fintech financial institutions can use it for agent banking mechanisms, wherein farmers can use it as a virtual ATM to come and withdraw money if they want to. when their milk is converted to currency in real time, right? The whole focus is they come into a collection center with something white, and can they go out with a currency that's sort of digital. So the focus is step one, solve for the basic productivity requirements. Step two, use the data that we have across the supply chain to enable financial services folks to do agent banking, to do payments, which I think we're doing even for CDPL. Can we do direct farmer payments so that you can sort of cut out the middleman disbursing the money? The money can directly go as a DBT into the farmer's account. Can we use tech like a facial recognition of animals to ensure that the ID manipulation doesn't happen, so that insurance companies can more confidently participate in the insurance, part of it, insurance part of the game. Can we bring in a notion of traceability? Can we, deploy a permission blockchain across the from the farm to the consumer, so that if Epigamia tomorrow wants to say, hey, look, here's where the milk actually came from, and here are the cohort of animals that actually gave you, antibiotic-free milk or aflatoxin-free milk. You can actually pinpoint them in real time. Bring in a notion of dynamic traceability, not just static batch specific traceability. So these are things that we are sort of enabling one step at a time, right? The focus is it's a large smallholder farmer segment. It takes time, as all the panelists have agreed, to shift them to an Israel level of productivity or a New Zealand level of productivity, right? But given where they are, can we take these incremental steps, right, where the network effect of a cumulative of multiple steps can result in pretty sizable farm income improvement, productivity improvement. Consumers like you and I can be confident that I'm getting traceable milk of certain that has been vouched for. And then can we also make India an export hub? So today, as you know, we probably haven't signed up to the RCEP, right? Why did we sign up to the RCEP? Because while we might get flooded by people coming in with great quality milk and SMP, do you think we can export to Western Europe with the same confidence? I guess we can't do that, right? But we have the potential. So we probably need to shift the orbit from a supply forward availability orbit, to a demand backward quality orbit, right? How can we ensure that, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, Dr. Kurian and the team has done a really fabulous job of ensuring that the quantitative sufficiency problem is solved. The availability problem is solved. So can we stand on the shoulders of these giants, right, and take it to the next orbit and work demand backwards, right? Can we, if India enters RCEP, other nations should shudder, not the other way around, right? Now we shudder because we don't think our farmers can produce great quality milk. Can you turn the situation on its head? Can we think a demand backward, kind of supply chain, and then can we become, sort of an export hub? For that to happen, all the panelists around the table needs to work in that direction. We are working in silos, but I think all of us can, cohesively work in the direction that becomes a big reality.
Thanks, Ajit, and especially articulating that bold vision. On the traceability, if I can just come back to you and just check with you, have we progressed, or is just a pipe dream right now?
Yeah, so the idea is that, unlike, let's say, it depends on how we want to go about traceability in the milk scenario, right? So the way we have gone about it is in the way we monitor the entire supply chain, right? We sort of maintain a mapping of every farmer ID and the animal ID, and which farmer contributes milk to which collection center, and which farmer's milk goes into which can, and which can of milk goes into which BMC, and which BMC milk goes into which tanker, and so on and so forth, right? So the idea is to build a broad map so that when something goes wrong, such as there is extra aflatoxin in the milk, right? There's no point in solving for it at a milk tanker level. You better solve it at a village level and figure out, okay, this village, these cohort of farmers have an aflatoxin problem. So how do I solve for aflatoxin for that cohort of farmers? And antibiotics. So some of the customers who we work with need to demonstrate antibiotic-free milk. So when a farmer walks in If I know that at his farm, the animal has been injected with antibiotics, can I give a pop-up at the collection center to say, hey, look, this farmer's milk might perhaps have antibiotics. Can I collect it in a separate can, right? It might be a taboo in Indian context to reject milk of certain type because farmers might be doing it inadvertently. But can you at least collect it separately so that it doesn't get mixed up with premium milk? So sort of, can we build a multi-grade supply chain? Can we help build a multi-grade supply chain rather than a uni-grade fat SNF only supply chain, which is there today, right? So these are steps in the direction which can, I think, give us sort of a head start. We may not want to know exactly your cup of coffee came from which animal, right? That probably is possible if you're running a 1,000-animal farm and you do it. But there's so many basic steps in between, like the one I mentioned, which probably should be the focus to begin with.
Very fascinating, Ranjit. I'm sure, there are many things I would like to peel, but in the interest of time, I'll move on to Jofi. Now, Jofi, you carry the ball from there, right? So now you're the important cog in the wheel, especially if the traceability story has to come true. In your experience, because you've been in that space, is it coming true, or is it just, just wishing that, it's going to come true?
I think the short answer, it's not yet coming through. But having said that, there are enough, initiatives or enough, kind of processes being driven, like what Ranjit mentioned, which can help us to take there. Now, the starting point is quality. And as you said, today, when you talk, its quality is basically defined as fat and SNF. It's very rarely goes beyond that. And perhaps the testing and the checking happens only at a very, very, later stage when it's at the dock or at the, at the processing center or the chilling center. So that's something which has to change. It also means that engaging with the farmer from a very early stage. Knowing what kind of feed and fodder goes, knowing what kind of, the disease or the antibiotics that are being given, and then taking it back.
Jofi, I think we kind of lost you there. Okay, I think while Jofi reconnects, Siddharth, let me kind of bring you in, right? So you're facing the consumers, you understand them better than anyone else, and let me. Is there curiosity around traceability, or are the consumers happy as long as you give them good quality and it appears fresh?
Yeah, that's been one part of our learning curve the last 5 years. Our consumers are innovating faster than most of us, right? Be it in the products that they adopt or the demands that they have, right? So I truly believe our consumers, at least the ones that we're catering to, are demanding, but empathetic to understand that these are really big, long, old supply chains that are so disaggregated that, you're not going to turn it around overnight, but they want to know what you're doing about it, right? And that's sort of the answer that, we wanted. So we've had, I get an email almost every day from a lot of our consumers saying, hey, what's the source of your milk? Is it free this? Is it free that? Is it an A2 cow? And there's so many emails. And unfortunately, my answer to them is, I'm collecting milk from a collection center. So I do the requisite test to make sure that, it's great for you. But, traceability is an issue at this stage. But, the next question they ask you is, okay, so what are you doing about it, right? And I think that's really the answer that I want to give them. That these are the things I'm doing for them, or at least for traceability. So it is definitely a topic of conversation, and it's going to continue being a topic of conversation as more and more consumers adopt products like us and get the vast amount of information that's available right now. So traceability is going to be super important. But I think consumers are empathetic to the point of saying that, okay, fine, these are really massive supply chains. And even if they don't know about it, as long as you tell them, they get it. But the next question is, what are you doing about it? So, I think all of us owe that at this stage. And of course, giving them some sort of visual to what the future looks like.
Right. So, if I were to ask you now, you say it's important. One, would they be willing to pay a premium for that? And can that premium be invested back in the value chain so that people who give you that kind of a quality can benefit from giving you that?
I think we are seeing consumers paying premium for these keywords in these supply chains. Right? We're seeing consumers calling out organic, calling out natural. We're seeing consumers. The only problem is that it's a small portion of consumers in the larger scheme of the dairy business. It is still a drop in the ocean. So in that sense, it's not a buzzword yet, but I truly believe the next 10 years, it is going to be that. If you can find economies, you should be able to subsume it within the supply chain. But yeah, I think as this country progresses and as we see more and more consumers demanding these sort of things, I think they'll be willing to pay a premium. And as long as we can build economies, we can be able to take care of it.
Okay. No, thanks for that, Siddharth. Jofi, welcome back. So I know we lost you somewhere between when you were saying about traceability, but I just want to pick your brains on an interesting topic. And can there be an organized trading platform for milk if you're able to standardize your parameters? I mean, obviously beyond fat and SNF, but if the cold chains are robust enough, do you see a potential for an open trading of milk?
I think absolutely. I mean, platforms, I think, will be the future. This will be typically the B2F2B kind of platforms, where you're able to connect thousands of farmers to dairy customers. And if you look at it, it kind of works for all stakeholders. As you said, a prerequisite is going to be some standardization of processes, standardization of quality. But look at it. I mean, there's a tremendous advantage for companies, who are setting up new operations, who are expanding to new geographies, or even those who want to start in niche segments, like Epigamia is doing. And Siddharth was very humble saying that we just take curd and mix fruits, but actually it's a brilliant product. And to reach there, you actually have to have some basic quality parameters in place. And if you look at it, if for a dairy or for a FMCG company, as you say, you focus on the consumer and the product, which is where the focus has to be. And there is somebody who can do the heavy lifting in terms of engaging with farmers, ensuring that the right processes are maintained, the chilling is done, the quality is maintained. It benefits. And you look at from the farmer's perspective. I mean, if they are able to get in the organized platform where the payments are on time, you get the right rates, you get inputs, and typically, if you go into areas where the large dairy clusters are not already present, you go to some of these new areas, it kind of works for everybody. And maybe organized dairy will reach there eventually, but these kind of platforms can take it much faster, be there, and serve as this thing for as a win-win for everybody, for the dairy, for the farmers. So I think they are the future. There are a lot of experiments being done. Ranjit is one of the leaders in that. And we are also trying a small pilot in our own way in Latur and Osmanabad. Eventually, as you said, but I think the important thing is, putting it all into some kind of standardization so that the dairy is also assured that the milk I get, is of a certain quality. I think that's what is important.
Right. I really like Ranjit's idea of, different grades of milk, and then they commanding different prices in the market, so that then the farmers can, pick and choose in terms of where they would like to play it, depending on, what kind of, farms that they have. No, thanks. That's very, very important input there. Now, if I can bring in, Ramana now, all of these things in terms of, you've seen a lot of traceability, a lot of data being collected. Now, how can we be a bit more razor sharp in terms of device? I know you don't build products, but I'm sure if a product works for one of them, it kind of works for others with some minor tweaking. But are you thinking of some very specific products for dairy, given that it offers a very stable cash flow, a very predictable cash flow? Sir, you're on mute. Ramana, you might want to unmute yourself.
I think I'll give you only 1 or 2 minutes on my personal views, because look at the same panel. If you were to do any good traceability, I think the way to build is a tight value chain. If I were to draw a similarity between something is the seed companies, how they were able to produce such a beautiful genetic material from the same farmers who produce with small acres. Very, very similarly, I think it starts with Dr. Kinney giving a genetic material and Ranjitji actually monitoring them across the tight value chain. And it can end up with Epigamia, or it could end up with an export market. But the whole tight value chain can work like gherkins because you can't side sell it. So what it will have is that here you say, here is an animal which has been produced with a traceability and its genetic parents, like you do in poultry, and then say the same thing will be monitored and advertised, and even animal will put a separate column saying that these animals are traced. I mean, their genetic material is traced, and then the farmers clusters actually develop that, and the end product could be a very highly premium milk, traceable milk, who is willing to pay, like people are willing to pay A2 milk 200 rupees. They will willing to pay, and it will go into Epigamia some premium product which says this we know where it has come from. It can come from clusters. So that makes a tight value chain is the most preferred for somebody like Samounnati, because we are working across the value chain and we know where it's going, and the customer grip is there with the end user, and he has a control in his market. Then we can finance across the value chain. So this is the whole value chain concept is for a value chain finance player. However tight the value chain is, then good chances that these also operate at a very higher equilibrium, because everyone knows what they're doing, and all the support services to these core players can be supported by say feed industry, nutrient industry, whatever you're talking about, flavor industry, whatever you want. All the support industries also can be financed so that they work at a very efficient way, so that the tight value chain works. So that's one way I'm looking at the future if you were to build, because currently all the processings put together, organized people are less than 20% of the, could be higher number in terms of the milk dairy you see. But I'm saying you can develop 3-4% of tight value chains, where like seed villages, I am seeing that milk villages who will produce, say this village has got traceability. And that's the work we can do in Samounnati. We are looking at aggregation, first part of the Amla. With an FPO, you can start with that, or with a cooperative dairy already existing in a small number and start with that, so that you can saturate the farmer. Seed village, you see, nobody grows. If it's a maize seed village, nobody grows any other maize around 10 kilometers for isolation. Very similarly, you can have this traceability, very tight value chains, what we call it. This is something because many of you remember 2 years back, we had to declare milk holiday. We were not able to procure, and all the milk powder plants were running at a full capacity. What does that mean is the consumer, we are producing more than what consumer can take actually. So if we put emphasis on the production and in a good quality, and even the production 5% increase, it has to find a market, and nothing like an export market or a premium market. I mean, best would be an export market as an alternate, because India is producing more than what we require today. So this is the way which makes sense. But any other specific question you want from Samounnati's side? Yes, I will take it. Yeah.
Sure. No, thank you. Thank you. And I think the concept of milk villages can benefit in more than one way. One, of course, is traceability, but also then with emphasis on productivity, right? Because if everybody has to work, that village needs to produce more, so that all of those inputs become efficient, right? So thanks for that. Now I think we are at the top of the 60 minutes, and I think we'll open it to our to the audience, and we have some very good Q&A that's come through. Not surprisingly, the first couple of questions are for Kirti. A lot of interest in what Animal does. So first is in terms of have any of the firms used an auction system to sell cows, right? And have you thought about it, and what would be the potential advantages and disadvantages of such an approach?
Sure. So Animal right now basically caters to household dairy farmers, and they are not that competitive when it comes to adopting something as an auction. For a household dairy farmer, the needs are very, very different than a professional dairy farmer. And maybe an auction type thing can work more for a professional dairy farmer, where they are buying multiple cattle of multiple genes in one load. So I'm not sure if other people have tried it. We have not yet tried it. But maybe if we ever get into the professional dairy farming space, this will be a lot more helpful.
Got it. The second question again is for you. This comes from Hemendra. I think he's wearing his investor hat again. He's saying that, what's your revenue model? And are you planning to extend this trading platform to vet services as well?
So our trading model, our revenue model as of now is that we will try to provide premium services, value-add services for both buyer side and the seller side, and try to monetize on that. We are not at the moment monetizing the whole handshake process, but what we are trying to monetize on is, as a seller, if I give you more predictability, then you pay me. Example, as a seller, you usually get your animal sold. The average is about seven days on animal. But what if I give you a guarantee for two days? What if I give you a guarantee for 4 days, and then you pay me for that guarantee? So that's one kind of model that we've looked at. So similarly, these kind of value add services, that discovery and the basic process on animal will always be free. But on top of that, if you want something extra, we'll charge a premium for that. For a buyer side, let's say if you want to know our opinion about a deal, if you want to know about our quality report of a deal, if you want offline inspection of a pashu, then all of those things we'll eventually charge buyers for. So those two different models, buyers and sellers, but essentially something that will also drive our growth and provide value to them. On the vet part, we did some experimentation around it when the lockdown had happened, because at that time there was no trading happening. We saw very good initial interest. There were people who actually asked us to start this so they can. I'll take a step back. The essential need for vet services is that right now in villages, what happens is that if I called for a vet and today my cattle is sick, he might come 2 days later because uska man hai. So that's the essential roadblock, that I am anxious today. I have a problem today. So we might experiment, we might go into it. But like I mentioned before, right now our focus is trading, and we do think that there can that we can create enough monetization within trading itself. But if opportunity presents itself, we will consider vet, because we have seen strong interest.
Right. Thanks for that. The next is on logistics. I think that's something that we didn't discuss. So probably between Ranjit and Jofi, if you can take this. It's an interesting part. First of all, do you see any kind of issues right now, and do you see some issues coming up in the years? And can technology play a role just in this beyond a cold chain, right? Both from a supply side and as well as the demand side.
Yeah, so on the logistics side, there are issues indeed, right? Because it's a fairly unmanaged setup. It's a very rural setup, right? If there is no tight monitoring, things, can go wrong. For instance, there is this part about, TS loss, total solids loss, right? Let's say you're doing a direct farmer payment, a DBT type payment at the collection center site. So there is a commitment to pay the farmers based on, quality and quantity based on what you took at the collection center. But as the milk traverses and reaches the BMC center or the chilling center, right, you suddenly notice that the fat in SNF has gone down, right, on a per can level, right? You've actually paid for X amount of kg fat, kg SNF, but you probably receive, 10%, lower, right? So it hits the dairy processing company's bottom line, directly, because finally at the end of the day, milk is all about, at this point, fat and SNF. The water part is the necessary evil that you carry around. But so even in that fat SNF, if something gets cut down, which is typically called as TS loss, how do you identify it? So what we normally do is put the tech at the reception dock of the chilling of the collection center on a per can level, doubles check the quality and quantity. And if it doesn't match the quality quantity at the point of dispatch at the collection center, then you know that along the route someone needs to be penalized or something actually goes wrong. A similar thing happens between the chilling center and the plant, which is sort of called the secondary transport, wherein on a per compartment level at the tanker, how do you know that what's being dispatched at the BMC is what is being received at the reception dock of the plant, right? So right from the plant reception dock to the point of dispatch in BMC, the reception point of the BMC center, the dispatch point of the collection center, all of these are points that needs to be monitored, controlled, and measured, right? So there are techs that we deploy to ensure that end to end, we don't compromise the quality and quantity of the milk.
Great. Thanks for that answer, Ranjit. The next question is for Siddharth. Very specific in terms of there's the other input into your products, which is, do you import or buy bacterial culture, or do you make it yourself?
No, we buy our cultures. We don't make it ourselves. That's
okay. And do you see that as an important? Is that a potential route you plan to take, or that is something that you leave it to the experts?
No, honestly, I don't have a direct answer to that. It's a good question. I should ask Chef if that's something that he's innovating and inventing on. But at this stage, from a brand perspective, yes, we are about taste, and we're about we are activists of taste and advocates of health. So we can be rest assured what comes out of our stable will be tasty. As far as health is concerned, yes, cultures play a huge role, and I think there's a good ecosystem of people that provide that. But chef is chef, you never know. It's a good question. I will ask him. Read something.
Great. So next question, probably Dr. Kini, you can take this. Beyond milk production, what other measurable parameters do farmers value in choosing? Because I think this goes right in terms of you're talking about providing different kind of genetics to different kinds of farmers. So is there a metric beyond milk production that they look at or they need to look at? Dr. Kini, can you unmute yourself?
So milk production is a final output of how you look after the animal. So it is not, you start off with production. You start off with an animal itself and you see the potential of that animal, but you have to make sure you get the best out of the animal. Now, there are two ways to do that. One is the traditional way which we feed the animal. That is, in the commercial system, we grain feed. We feed the animal with a concentrate. We feed extra things to the animal so that the full genetic potential can be delivered. The other way is a very interesting way, what New Zealand has adopted, which is a pasture fed. That means they don't feed the animal anything, not even a concentrate, nothing. In fact, they don't even put the animal in a shed. They just allow the animal to eat grass, because this is what it is designed for. The animal has been designed to just eat grass and nothing else. If you look at it in the wild animals, they just eat grass. And therefore, the productivity or the amount of milk which the New Zealand cows give is nearly about half or maybe even 1/3 of the American top American. But New Zealand is the world's cheapest milk producer, even cheaper than India or anybody else. It is just because it is pasture led. And so that gives you the clarity of vision of you should not just go after production of milk. You should look at the productivity. You should look at the inputs which goes into that. So that is a very important point which we need to bring in, because that is what I would like to bring into our 2 cow farmers. These are the low income farmers who cannot put a lot of inputs into that animal, unlike professional farmers who can put a lot of inputs. So designing an animal for them versus designing an animal for more a professional farmer is very different. So that is where some of the innovations which we bring inside. For example, we wanted to bring in vertical pastures. As an example, for example, the pasture today is an horizontal pasture growing on land. The grass grows on land. Now, suddenly you make the whole pasture become vertical. And you allow the plant to grow for 45 days, and then you cut it every 45 days. Not exactly a shoot what people have done hydroponically. You actually grow the whole plant. And so these are the challenges which we are looking at to reduce the cost of milk production, because feed is 60 to 70% of the entire cost of milk.
Right.
And only about 15% is genetics, and other 15% is farmers' labor. So whatever you do to reduce the cost of feed will reduce the cost of milk, production of milk, and hence improve the income of the farmers. And that brings back to the other question of adulteration. The farmer will never adulterate if he is able to make good money. If he makes good money, he will never adulterate.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Kini. I think that's a very disruptive idea. How do you work on genetics for the input from an input side as well? And thanks, Burgess, for that question. The next question is that in terms of, do you see Indian Dairy going digital with payments? I think it's already doing that. If I can put the question to Ramana, what percentage would you see its digital payments as on date from your experience? And how do you think the banking needs to evolve? The traditional banks, and the whole banking setup. How do you think that they should evolve to fully cater to the needs of the India's large, very organized societies?
The first question is, I think maybe around the processing is around 15% is what the organized sector. So digital payments would be around maybe 5% or even less. But what is increasingly happening is because of the mobiles and apps, it's going to happen much faster. But what Samounnati is now planning to do is for the closed loop systems of using a pay card. That is something any of these organized people can do it. So once he gives a milk, it can also account for it. And if there is a loan, the amount can be adjusted from that. And that's something in the development in our Samounnati table right now. So the pay card will be a closed loop system as a number one system. But in terms of the banking, if you really see the three sectors, one is the banking, and you see now the total value chain approach, but there's something called microfinance. I used to run an NBFC in microfinance, but my own experience is out of all the loans that's gone, which is likely to be some 50,000 crores currently estimated, 50 to 60% of those loans women take, they go back to a dairy sector. So one way, the previous argument what I saw in the part one, that it's is a small and marginally doesn't get much money, which is also not true, because he gets from these microfinance, which are financed by the banks. And second one is somebody like Samounnati. Now we are looking at a totally innovative way of financing these kind of people through FPOs, because they are the aggregated platform for all these dairy farmers and others, where you can do a blended lending. I think like others said, it could be a business correspondent, banking correspondence model, or get 3-4 funds for the same co-lending, so that your average cost to the financing will be much cheaper to that particular sector. So this is something which is coming in the way. And the point I made in the earlier, saying that if we were to make this sector operate at a higher equilibrium, we need to finance all the eco players. So I see there are three categories. One is that the farm sector, we are looking at the approach of FPOs, and at an enterprise level, we are already lending to many people. It doesn't matter which part of the value chain you work as a support or either way. If you're an enterprise and you have a dairy connection, we are willing to work with them. And you have seen in the co-panelists say, acknowledging that it's a multi. The third one is the startups. So Samarambh is a platform which we are putting up already. I think out of 250 and odd applications we received, I think more than 35, 40 are from dairy sector. So they get not only mentoring, advisory, and also initial startup money, debt, not necessarily the equity, but the debt finance is something that we can take this through Samarambh platform. If somebody is interested, they can actually go back, and if your suppliers interested to work in, probably you can take that as a startup initiative. The last one is what we call is for the ecosystem players. We got this Agri Elevate, where anybody who is in the dairy sector wants to connect, go to Agri Elevate, because it talks about the not only agriculture and agri-allied sectors. So it is like a Pragati Maidan of the ecosystem. You can showcase your product, you can showcase your company and your products, equipment, whatever it is, you showcase there, and then people can interact, and then probably we can intervene wherever there is some help that is required to connect both of them, etc. So I think there is a lot more that is being done in the both agri-allied, especially in the dairy sector. Dairy sector, first level, I think there is a lot of genetic work towards the nutrition. I think the second one is in terms of how do we add value to our products, not necessarily in the domestic market, but even in the export market. And that financing also probably we should be able to take up, because this is something, and think about as a people who want to start up a closed, what I call is a closed loop and a tight value chains is the way forward to make very, very specific ones, because that's where you have margins which can be shared enough. I think Dr. Saab's view saying that if you pay price, he'll be willing to get you good milk, not only from a genetic point of view, also from a nutrition as well as from a quality point of view. So I think to make that happen, you need to have this tight value chain where you have ability to command a premium and transfer part of it to the your collection system, because 80% of prime cost in agriculture is the raw material. Like you said, 80% is the feed, but that's true for most of agriculture. What we call is a prime cost is 60 to 80% is the raw material. And the way to do it is that you concentrate on that. I think rest of the markets, it's your imagination. You can just capture the market, and it's too huge a market. We are just at 15%. We are not even, our organized sector is hardly anything. So I think we have a place for everybody, and Samunati is getting prepared for the ecosystem player. So we are not really saying that we will only finance you, but if you, before we finance you, if we have to work with you, yes, we will work with you for 6 months before we get you the money. And sometimes if it is cheaper for elsewhere, we are even willing to co-lend or make a mixed deal with somebody and then do that part. So we have a part of a piece of cake in it, but we don't have to be the only people. We have to do it, and we have done this in 2-3 sectors and 3 players, one international, one local bank, and us together. We give the finance to the sector. So it's very much possible because it's a very, very proven sector. And last 30 years, in the total 46 years, I've seen the development after the industry is open to other people, to players to come in. Dairy sector has really seen a boost up, and everybody has a place, including Amul is less than 14% market share. With 7 Amuls in one place as the Amul brand, still it's only 14%, 12% market share of the thing. So it's still place is open for everybody. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. So next question is for Kirti again, for you. It's a bit more technical on your platform in terms of how deep do you intend to go in terms of transactions? How do you get visibility if the transaction is actually completed via your platform?
Sure. So I'll answer the second question first because that's more relevant. So right now what we do is when a seller lists, so like I said, we cater to household dairy farmers. So when a seller lists, after that listing, we ask, after that listing gets significant number of calls from buyers, it gets significant interest. We ask the seller, have you actually sold it? Because then there's incentive for seller to tell us that they have actually sold it, because otherwise they keep getting spam calls. They've already sold the cattle. Otherwise, they will just keep getting 10, 20, 30 calls. So the seller tells us that, okay, I have sold it. And then we ask them from all the buyers that contacted them through Animal to which they have sold. And then from that buyer, we confirm if they've actually bought that cattle from that seller. So that's how the handshake presently happens. On the context of whether we want to go deeper into it, of course, yes. If the efficiency of everything lies with us being more involved in at every step, be it through payments, be it through delivery, be it through assessment, we will take that step. So we do plan to get to the last step. How much time it will take, that we'll get to know.
Okay, thanks for that. If the panelists give me permission, there are a few more questions the audience have asked, then I would like to take them up. Okay, I take that as a yes. Jofi, if we can take this, right? So how technology can solve for adulteration? I know one is Dr. Kinney. In terms of if the remuneration is right, then of course the incentive to adulterate goes away. But short of that, in terms of how can technology solve for adulteration in supply chain and at scale? And do you see a policy change that can accelerate adoption of tech in this thing? Because some places, especially in food, regulations have played a bigger role in terms of bringing quality to the table. Your thoughts on that?
I think let's look at it in 3 parts. I mean, let me answer the second question first. I think the regulation and implementation of regulation can play a huge role in terms of improving the quality. So I think that goes without saying, and I'll just leave it there. In general, if you want to improve the quality, there's an increase in cost. And the big challenge is that today, most of the milk sold is pouch milk, which has very standardized quality requirement. So the incentive for the companies or the producers to actually invest in quality, invest to increase quality is very limited. Having said that, consumption patterns are changing. You find that the basket in terms of value-added products is increasing, which requires higher quality milk. There are niche players coming in, whether it is organic milk or better quality products which require better quality of milk. And all that depends on what you do at the source or at the starting point, which is the collection center or the farm. And this over the last 2 years, I've seen that the conversations of quality has increased dramatically. So a few years back, it was just about cost. But today, a lot of conversations are increasing where dairies actually want to improve the quality. See, the nirvana is ultimately if you can improve the quality without increasing cost. And that is where technology can play a role. So, for example, it's going to be a combination of technology and business models, if you ask me. For example, our current collection system, wherein you have the primary transport, you have a chilling, you have a collection point, then you have a chilling center, then you have a secondary transport. Is it possible to improve quality by bringing the chilling as close to the farm as possible, but eliminate some of the downstream costs, by combining infrastructure? Second is, you take in terms of utilization. I mean, most of the bulk milk coolers, our utilization is 50, 60, 70%. Can you actually overutilize it? And there are customers who do it and who do it fairly successfully. The transportation cost is in most cases much higher than the chilling cost. So if you can save on that and spend more money on chilling, are you able to get much better quality of milk? Can you scale down equipment? And I think I raised this point before. Can you scale down equipment and get the same kind of quality even with small volumes of milk? I think the technology solutions are there. And you add on to the layer in terms of what we do in terms of testing and what we do in terms of transparency and traceability at the collection point. A combination of all these can help us deliver much better quality of milk.
Okay. Thanks, Jofi, for that. So this, Siddharth, the next one is for you. And this is the buzzword right now. What about the plant-based milk? The other alternatives, where do you see the consumer perception? Where do you see, is there an option, or is just another fad that's just going to go away?
Food is rife with fads, so you never know what's in and what's out. But clearly, plant-based is a fad that's picking up. It's a small portion of consumers that are buying it now. They're rooted to two primary reasons. One is a certain level of contemporary morality. And the second one is for health. We just launched our plant-based coconut yogurts in the month of May, and we launched it on our digital platform. And we did something called a pre-order. It's probably for the first time in the history of the world, there's a pre-order of yogurts. And within a day, we got 1,000, within a day and a half, we got 1,000 orders. We had to stop. Right. So there is a large portion of it. Not when I say large, it's large in terms of numbers, but it's a drop in the ocean in India. People demanding plant-based products for these two reasons that I mentioned. But I think the future of plant-based is not necessarily driven only by these two reasons. I think there is a goodness of ingredient that one must not deny for plant-based. I mean, coconut, oats, cashew, almond. Right. I think the consumers are more and more, they will experiment a lot more. They will demand a lot more platforms. So you will have consumers consuming dairy. You'll have consumers consuming plant-based because of the goodness of yogurt. So even today, our consumers toggle between a Greek yogurt, and some of them have added coconut yogurts to their basket. And I think that's really where the future lies. So yes, that platform will be most salient. Today, it's for morality and health reasons, but tomorrow it just might be a permissibility reason, which is saying that it's a good ingredient. Yeah, coconut. How can you go wrong? And we'll see a lot more consumers adopting that, and that's the exciting part of the industry.
Right. So, if I can take just one last question, and I come back to you, Dr. Kini. In terms of there's a question on heat monitoring software. Do you see that playing a role, so that at least with the available genetics, with the available, can the farmer inseminate at the right time and then be a bit more successful there?
So was that for me? I guess.
So I thought I was giving to Dr. Kinney.
Sure, please go ahead. I'll let.
A bit of, yeah.
So heat is, if you look at it, we actually have developed a program, and we talk to our farmers, and we call it the 4 R's: the right place, the right time, right person, and the right record. So when we say right time is when we detect the heat. Now currently the heat is detected manually or by the farmer knowing it, but eventually what we need is a system where we can actually make out based on where the animal moves, where the animal moves, we can exactly tell you when the animal is going to heat. Now there are several commercial systems available, but they all have a disadvantage that they have tethered to some kind of a Bluetooth or some kind of a system, which makes it extremely expensive. And to have a system which is useful for a 2-cow farmer, a little bit of more technology needs to be developed. That is one point. And the second is, of course, the right place. When you deposit the semen, you have to deposit it into the uterus and not into the vagina or into the cervix. And then the right person who is well trained into it. So to deposit the semen into the right place, we have developed a new kind of a gun, AI gun, which is a visually aided AI gun, that means it's like your standard endoscopes which the surgeons use in humans. So we put a camera at the tip of it. So we can exactly say when the semen is going to be deposited. When we put all these components together, the success rate, which currently is about 30% per AI, can shoot up to 50, 60, maybe even 70%. Even the best systems actually go up to 90%. We have seen it in Amur. What this does is it increases the milk production by about 45 days more. That significantly improves the income of the farmer, revenue of the farmer. So heat detection is therefore an extremely important technology which we need to bring inside.
No, thanks for that, Dr. Kinney. There are a couple of more questions which are specifically addressed to certain participants. In the interest of time, I would request, Abhijit, if you could, take this offline. And with that, I would like to, thank all the panelists for their, for great insights that you've shared. I'd like to thank the ThinkAct team, Ritu, Raman, and Abhijit, for putting together such an excellent panel. To be honest, I can spend days with such knowledgeable people and learn a lot. Thank you so much. It's been a very enriching experience for myself. And with that, I hand it back to Ritu.
Thank you. And I think, Pramod, you echoed our sentiments here. Thanks to all the panelists for coming and joining us and creating a very meaningful discussion. We look forward to seeing ways and means as ThinkAct to work with you guys to take things forward, to sort of, move more technology and innovations into the sector. And last but not the least, thanks to the audience for coming and joining and asking a lot of meaningful questions. So thanks from ThinkAct's side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.